Dr. Stacy Henderson, I love your picture.
Good morning, everyone. It's almost noon. Welcome to the session. We're going to let people in before we get started.
Oh, and Lydia Wiles, I like your picture too. Happy to see your faces, those of you that got faces on the screen.
So we still have people coming in. We'll give it a few more seconds.
If you need to get your lunch or a snack and eat while I'm talking, that will not hurt my feelings at all. You need to get your hierarchy of needs met. Good morning, DC. Angela. And Shay and Jessica.
Welcome, everyone. Thank you for being a part of the 2022 Smart Start Conference. Thank you for being with us virtually this year. We are hoping for 2023 that we'll be able to meet in person again. But again, thank you for being with us. During this session today, we have with us Dr. Laura Wilhelm from Kaplan Early Learning, and she is going to present to us today on Between Now and Then, Liminal Spaces, Language Loss, and Post-Pandemic. I'm going to turn it over to you, Dr. Wilhelm. Thank you.
Thank you, Yvonne, for that nice introduction. I'm glad you are all here. Like I said, if you need to eat, go right ahead and eat while I'm talking. Take care of your needs. If you look at the bottom of your Zoom screen, you'll see reactions. This is a newer addition to Zoom that I love. If you click on that, you'll see clapping hands, a heart, some other faces. If you click on the three dots at the end of the top row, you'll find every emoji you've ever seen. So there you can see my little chicken. Whatever you click on will appear in the top corner of your name or your face. So if you want to react while I'm talking and kind of let me know how you're feeling, give me the temperature of the room, you can use those reactions. There's also the chat box, which you're probably familiar with. But now, even in the chat, there's an emoji option. So when you're typing in the chat, you can also tell us how you're feeling. You may have seen in the chat, this is a Kaplan sponsored session. So if you stay all the way to the end, the whole 30 minutes, there's a prize. There's a drawing for a prize. So think about that. All right, let's get started. This is only 30 minutes. Like I said, it's going to go fast. Okay, so while everyone's still entering, it looks like we've got most of the people we're expecting, but some folks still coming in, which I'm happy to see. This session is called Between Now and Then, Liminal Space, Language Loss, and the Post-Pandemic. So maybe this is a new vocabulary word for you, liminal space. What is that? And if you already use that word and hopefully love it, and that's why you picked this session, hopefully this will be fun for you too, to do a little word play. So just last week, it was announced that we're coming out of the pandemic. We're not out of it. As we know, we're seeing surges in different parts of the country, but we're in a different phase. We're in a transition phase. And so when we talk about spaces between that aren't really one thing, we're not really where we were before. We don't know if we're going back where we were before ever, or if we're going someplace new, but that space in between can be called liminal. We're going to talk about language loss. We're starting to see a lot of studies come out about language that children have lost. I know at least one professor who says, nothing's lost. You can't lose what you didn't have. But certainly we're not at the levels we were before. And we'll talk about what children were learning when they weren't learning the things they would have been learning had they been in school the whole time. So children are always learning, but it's different, absolutely. When we introduce a new word to a child, when we're reading, I know some of you are teachers, some of you are former teachers, we want to preload that vocabulary for language learners, for second language learners, or in preschool, all children are language learners and in infant toddler programs. So preloading liminal, and I want this to be your vocabulary word for the day. I want you to try to use it 3 times so it will become your word. It comes from Latin and it means threshold. So when you think of threshold, what do you think of? Maybe a bride and groom across the threshold, or that board between your bedroom and your bathroom, where the flooring changes. It's a threshold. It's a moment of transition, a place of entrance or beginning. A liminal space is a time between what is and what's next. It's a season of waiting, of not knowing, and that can be pretty uncomfortable. Let me show you what I mean. There are liminal feelings. If you think about the beginning of the pandemic, news were showing like Disneyland or Times Square, places that used to always be crowded and suddenly they're empty. And that kind of gives you a weird feeling. That's a liminal feeling. Take a look at this picture. Where does your eye go? You can put your answer in the chat. You can unmute and tell me. What do you look at when you see this, or what do you think of when you see this picture? So maybe your eyes drawn to the light in the center there. Maybe this is a restaurant or a fancy hotel. But then when your eyes come out and look around, you see the sky and the water. Maybe it's the ocean or a lake. You see more light on one side of that apartment building or whatever it is behind than on the other. If you look really closely, you see some trees. But this building is on the edge, right? The edge between the land and the water. So that's a liminal space, that shore. It's on the edge between day and night, or night and day, whether it's sunset or sunrise, it's in that space between. So when we're thinking about spaces between those liminal places and feelings and back to normal or new normal or endemic, should we panic? Some days we do panic, right? But I'm going to use my skills as an old kindergarten teacher, as an infant toddler teacher and a director, to try to keep your anxieties low as we wade through these issues. And hopefully we're going to emerge refreshed on the other side with a renewed sense of purpose. So let's breathe, everybody, in through your nose and out through your mouth. There you go. All right, now I'm going to give you a chance to take a look at a liminal space. What is liminal in this photo? Put it in the chat or tell me. Looks like we have lots of participation, lots of folks putting answers in the chat. Move it over so I can take a look. Hello, everybody. So the pier, the deck, the sunset, the pillars, absolutely. If you look on this deck, there are little people there, right? Where are those people? Are they on the land? Not really. On the water? Not really. So being out on that pier or that deck is really a liminal space. That sunset or sunrise is a liminal space between day and night. That kind of lonely feeling when you look at this picture with all the reflection on the water and the glass and the sky, that is a liminal feeling, maybe. So Oxford Dictionary says liminal is relating to a transition. Oh, hang on. I was trying to let somebody in and I stopped my share. Let me do it again. There we go. Relating to a transitional or initial stage of a process, occupying a position at or on both sides of a boundary or threshold. Can you think of anything we've all been through together the last 2 years, the last 3 school years that makes us feel liminal?
Pandemic.
Absolutely. These changes, they can be physical, like when you're changing jobs or moving and you're trying to imagine what it's going to feel like coming home from work in this new house, this unfamiliar place. It can make the future seem uncertain. And certainly right now, the future seems uncertain. So if you want to feel better, if you want an escape from these liminal moments, I'm going to share my favorite tweet, my favorite one lately. This is Megan K. Stack. She said, at bedtime, the eight-year-old told me that his teacher said, think of your mind like a pond full of fish, and each fish is a feeling. Try to be the pond and not the fish. All I can say is primary school is significantly improved since I was a kid. We have improved in early education, and we continue to improve every time we make a moment better for a child or for a family. You think about all the uncertainty in the world right now, from war to the specter of a new COVID variant. How can we calm our minds? How can we practice self-care so that we can take care of other people? When we tell teachers, oh, just practice self-care, that's one more thing on top of everything we're already asking them to do. How can we be the pond and not the fish? How can we really take care of ourselves as the caregivers? So today's agenda is part 1. We're going to talk about how we spent the pandemic, the language loss, the liminal feelings of transition, and how we move forward when we don't even know what's next. In part 2, we're going to talk about embracing the present. Even though we're in a liminal place, we can accept that and we can embrace where we are right now. Then think about the lesson, the lessons we want to carry forward. What pre-pandemic things do we miss? What do we want to create for the future? For example, cleaning and sanitizing and disinfecting. I can't remember the last time I caught a cold. Maybe we want to keep some of that. Early childhood is finally getting some of the funding we've always needed. How do we want to use that? How do we want to make life better for the families, the programs, the teachers that we serve? The Dalai Lama says, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito in the room. Got some more folks coming in. I can confirm that one's true. All right, how we spent the pandemic. This is my great nephew, Colin, and he was at a wedding recently. We started having weddings again. This is his cousin's wedding, and it was in this barn, so it's loud, there's music, there's too many people. And so Colin went to his grandma because he knows how to practice self-care and get his needs met. And he said, Grandma, do you have any books in your van? Well, Grandma's a librarian, so of course she did. And so he found a nice rock to sit on. He read a book, had some quiet moments. He went back into the reception for a little bit. And after a while, went and found Grandma again. Do you have any more books? And she did. We need to be Colin. We need to recognize our needs when we're being overwhelmed and people are asking too much of us. I was in a conference last week where people had 3 different virtual sessions they were required to be in on the same day. So they were supposed to be at this conference, they were supposed to be at this citywide thing, and they were supposed to be at something for their agency. You can't do that. You've got to practice some self-care and say, sorry, I'm one person. I can't clone myself. I've got to take care of myself. All right, here's my friend's son. This is Roz's son, Elliot, doing kindergarten. Why would language be lost? Because this is not how kindergarten should be on a laptop, but at least his mom's in children's theater and she knows he needs to get his physical needs met. And so she allowed him to attend kindergarten in midair. which worked for him. And he learned things. He learned how to work the laptop or the iPad really well. He learned how to entertain himself when his mom was working with his older brother with schooling and getting her job done at home. All those multiple things and stresses that families had to deal with, children were watching and they were learning from us. So there is going to be a language consequence, especially for babies. The times that we're masked, they get a lot of information from the bottom half of our face. Children on the autism spectrum get a lot of information from the bottom half of our face. So we've got to really exaggerate our eyes and our eyebrows and our hands and our voice to get the same messages across. I know lots of teachers have told me they saw big changes in behavior when they were masked at school from the first day that they were masked. So those are things we have to make up. And we're going to have to look at that. I was listening to a Harvard College of Ed seminar yesterday, Harvard Graduate School of Education, and they were talking about, we don't even know the scope of the problem yet. We can't plug the hole till we know how big the hole is. And so we're still figuring all that out. But be aware that children need lots of opportunities, not just to hear our language, but to use language themselves to start to make up for this deficit. New skills learned. Did you try to cook something new? Did you make sourdough bread? Did you try to balance a broom? That was another big pandemic thing. I got a hot pot. A hot pot came to live at my house from my sister-in-law. And I was reading the instructions, and the first instructions were to boil water. And I thought, that's ridiculous. You know, I don't need to boil water in this Instapot. But what I learned was when I followed all the steps to boil water, then I could cook food and not ruin it, because that thing's complex, figuring out which buttons do what. And so it was really scaffolding for me. You know, learning to boil water was really learning to make food, but one step at a time. And so that's something I think we need to also give ourselves grace for. We're not going to learn all these new skills instantly. We've got to take the scaffold, take the baby steps toward them. Creative opportunities in the pandemic. This is another great niece and nephew, and they wanted to go to the aquarium when they couldn't go to the aquarium. Well, the aquarium that's near us has a tube with sharks where you can walk through this tunnel and look up and see sharks. Have you been to an aquarium like that? And so, oh, hang on, I was letting somebody in and clicked again. I gotta stop doing that. So they found a way to make sharks that you could look up at with the toys they had on hand. So you can see they've got a parking lot, they've got a building with air conditioners on top, they've got a path with various aquarium displays they've made, and they've got sharks that you can look up at as you walk down the path, and then other eye level displays. So we got creative during the pandemic when we had time to do things we don't normally have time for. In my house, we learned to make centaurs. This is my kid and me with our big dog. If you look at our shadows, do you see the centaur? So we learned to deal with loneliness, with boredom, and then after a while, we learned to embrace solitude. And now we've got to reverse that and learn how to get along with people again. And it's awkward, right? When you have to talk to people in groups and you haven't done that for a while. So we need to give ourselves grace, but also give children a lot of grace, because they don't have the decades of experience that we have to call on, to look back on. And when we're not so rushed, we can find more time for joy. And I think that's the most important thing for any learning. When we're joyful, our brains learn more efficiently. So for this reflection, I just want you to think about, you can put in the chat if you want to, what have you learned in the past few years? Patience, absolutely. And pure happiness, yes. To take time for yourself. calmness, how to adapt. Spend as much time, not take people for granted. Self-care. Granted. Alone time. Yeah. I know at the beginning of the pandemic, they told us we were going to be home for 2 weeks. I panicked. I thought, I can't be home for 2 weeks and do nothing and see no one, go nowhere. Pretty soon I figured out, yeah, I can. I can be home for a lot longer than that.
I've
Okay.
also learned to live in the present.
Absolutely. And that's a hard lesson, isn't it?
Yes.
Just be fully present. Thank you. Yeah, dinner together more. What's important? Go ahead.
I learned that I put a lot of pressure on myself and to relax.
Yeah. And it's going to be okay, right? These things that make us panic, we can let go of a little bit. Letting go. Great. Thank you. You guys are wonderful. All right. So your word for the day, what is it? Liminal. So now we're going to talk real quick about some liminal feelings in times of transition. Like I said, I want you to make this word your own. So what is a liminal space? And what is a liminal feeling? To illustrate these, I'm going to take you to a garden. This is a botanic garden in Fort Worth, Texas. And while I was there, I was thinking about liminal. So I found it everywhere I looked. As you can see, I'm inside this stick sculpture. I love sticks. I actually do a workshop on sticks because sticks are free. That's a free loose part. So being inside the sticks, I'm not really outside because I'm inside, but I'm not really inside because I'm outside. That makes it a liminal space. See how much fun it is to use your new word? Okay, so this garden was not in the winter. There's no snow. Everything's not dead. It's not in the summer or the spring. Nothing's blooming yet. Nothing's even budding. It's that liminal time. It's that season of waiting, kind of like where we are in the pandemic right now. We're just waiting. In hospitality, they call this shoulder season, and flights are cheaper, hotels are cheaper, beaches aren't crowded. You're going to need a jacket on the beach, but it's not crowded. I went to Sika at Myrtle Beach in the winter, and that's how I felt. No crowds, but cold. It's a liminal time. We can embrace the beauty of where we are right now. The ocean was still gorgeous. The sound was still wonderful. Okay, bridges. We're going to look at literal and figurative bridges. When you look at this picture, where is your eye drawn? Is it pulled down the sidewalk by the wall and then over the bridge to the other side? Bridges carry us from one shore to the next, like the time between phases of our lives. When we're pregnant, that's a bridge between childless and being a parent, or between the number of children we have and one more or two more. Pregnancy is a bridge. Engagement is a bridge between being single and being married. Divorce and the time during the divorce is a bridge between being married and being single. All the transitions from youth to old age, when we go off to school, when we graduate, some of us go off to school again and graduate again and again. Those are bridges or times of transition. Those are liminal spaces. These bridges are a little bit different. If you notice, one of them is underwater, a low water crossing right here with the squares. The other one with the circles, those are stepping stones. When you look at that, you might think, oh, that's dangerous. That's scary. I wouldn't let a child do that. Well, I can tell you from experience, it's not that dangerous because I've actually missed a step on those stepping stones. It's not fun walking off with one wet shoe, step, squish, but it's not really dangerous. So we want children to take some risk because of the feeling of accomplishment when they do. When I was teaching kindergarten one year, we went to a campground that was close by our school for a field trip. And there was a rope bridge. There was one rope that kids walked on and two ropes above that they held onto. I had a little girl who wanted to cross that so bad. And underneath there was a lot of sand. You know, it wasn't really dangerous. It was barely off the ground. but she was so scared, she was shaking and she was crying, that ugly cry with tears and snot. And she wanted so bad. And like the whole class was on both sides cheering her on, and step by step, she made it across. And the whole year that became a shared experience for our class, that kids would say, Daniqua, do you remember when you were so scared, but you crossed that bridge? And then they would encourage each other. So you can do this. So we do want children to take some risk, but we also want to mitigate those risks. How dangerous is it really? How can we protect them? Could we hold their hand? Could we put a rope there or give them a walking stick? So think about ways children can take risks, but also be safe. And the same for yourself, ways you can take risks, but have a pretty good chance of being successful. The older I get, the more risk averse I get. Okay, think about the water in a waterfall. Is that a liminal space? Because it was in the river up above, it's going to the river down below, but while it's falling, sometimes we have that feeling, right? Like everything's in free fall, like the rocks are rushing up toward me. So I think that's a liminal feeling. The spider web, is that a liminal space? The spider is there waiting. And there's, to give you a scale, that's me and my sister-in-law, my niece, to let you kind of see the size. The spider knows the web. She built it. She knows where the sticky parts are. She knows the places she can safely scamper across. A bug doesn't know that. And that's why the bug gets stuck and the bug becomes lunch. Right now, in our liminal spaces, as we're moving out, hopefully, of lockdowns and quarantines and relearning to socialize, think about children who don't have the experience we have. Goalposts have shifted, but they continue to shift. Things that we would say that could never happen, those things are happening all the time. You're not a fan of the spider. It's made of wood. It's not going to get us. I have friends who hate spiders. I kind of like them. My husband says they're hamsters with extra legs. So think about one way you can embrace the here and now. What can you do? Even though we might not know what's coming, how can we embrace where we are? And the shadow, that's almost a liminal space too, the shadow of the spider web. I'll show you again real quick. We're running out of time, so I'm going to keep going through this, but just think about it when you have a chance. How can you embrace the here and now? Okay. Absolutely be intentional with what you do and how you spend your time. My good friend is a psychologist. She's an infant mental health specialist, and she uses this in therapy all the time. When we think about our worries, what are you worried about right now? Right? Is it in your control? Honestly, the things we can control are just this little dot in the middle. I can control my behavior, my actions, my responses to others, my decisions, and my attitude. That's all. Now, if we look at that big circle on the outside, things that are beyond my control, I can't control my past behaviors or choices. There's no reason for me to lay awake at night and worry about it. It's gone. That ship has sailed. I can't control if other people are on time, even if it drives me crazy. I can't control it. I can't control the weather or world peace or death or a child's trauma history. I can't control the media or even the outcome of sports. But I have influence. I can influence a child's reputation by the way I talk to a child and the way I talk about a child. I can influence the way other people feel about that child. I can influence my reputation, what you think about me. I can influence other people's thoughts and their actions, including children, with my expectations and the way I treat them. I can influence the workplace climate, my children's future. Mine are 16 and 19, so I can't control their future, but I can influence it. I can influence whether people like me, and I can influence workplace efficiency. So as you are going through this conference and your day and your life beyond, think about what's in your control, What's out of your control, let that go, and then focus on what you can influence. So looking back like this long bridge, it feels like we've been in a long, long liminal space between pre-pandemic and wherever we're going. Think about what you miss. Many teachers have told me they miss really interacting with families every day. The curb pickup is so rushed, they don't get to have good conversations. Think about what you miss. And then what have you learned? I met someone who started Zooming with their cousins every week, every Thursday night. All the cousins get on Zoom and they get to know what's going on in each other's lives. They didn't do that before. Then they decided to get together with their parents and brothers and sisters every Saturday night and do the same thing, just a check-in. What's going on? What's happening? What are you worried about? That's a good thing. Better cleaning and hand washing. Learning to open some windows or get some fans so that we have cross breezes, so that we're breathing better and feeling better, staying healthier. Those are good things that are coming out of the pandemic. Fewer colds and allergies, less value on things. I'm not wearing shoes right now. You didn't even know that, right? Till I told you I don't need to buy dress shoes because I mostly sit at the screen. But I also want to be comfortable. And so I'm learning to focus less on things and more on comfort, more on how I can help other people. Yeah. Someone else mentioned in the chat about communicating with family and friends. We cannot predict the future, but we can invent it. Each of us has that power. And that's what I want you to take away from here today. Think about what you want to create for the future. Think about telehealth. Remember when going to the doctor meant taking off work, driving across town, waiting in the waiting room, and then waiting in the little exam room? Now I just turn on the computer and magically my doctor's there. I like that. Think about social distancing isn't bad from some people, you know. Somebody wants to get together. I don't know. COVID's going up. Maybe I shouldn't see you. And then think about what you would do with real ECE funding. What could we accomplish? What do we want for our future on this long bridge that we're still on moving forward? So either from this session, which I know was real quick, or from this conference where you've had lots of other ideas, what are 3 ideas that you will take forward? And you can put them in the chat, you can tell me, or you can just think about it. My goal for everyone is to have a new thought. I think that is a definition of learning, to think something you never thought before. So what is your new thought? See the liminal space, I love it. You just made my whole day. Anybody else want to share a new thought? Be mindful, live in the moment, be fully present. Those are wonderful.
Also, being that we've gone through the pandemic and everything was going on, like you said, we learned to live in the present, but also we learned that it's okay not to be okay.
Absolutely. Especially us as caregivers, right?
Right.
Yeah. Give ourselves some grace and not be okay sometimes. I lost my mom last spring.
Right.
You know, it's not okay.
No, it's not okay. But I think sometimes, like, we think we have to be so strong. But I think, like, since we had time to be alone or to just be locked in, we're just learning that it's okay not to be okay, to accept that. And then also, but not to linger on it. But just know that you don't have to punish yourself.
Absolutely. Somebody said self-care is not selfish. I love that. Thank you so much, KP. Okay, this was absolutely beautiful. And now self-care, not selfish, was Brenda. Thank you. Now we have a prize, I think. Yvonne, are you going to do that?
Yes, I will. First of all, thank you so much for a wonderful session. That was lots of great information. I'm going to look for my liminal spaces from on now on. So thank you so much. And also, I just need you to send me that first quote about the child and the fish.
Oh, okay. I
Yes,
absolutely will.
so that I can
Try,
share it with everyone.
try to be the pond, not the fish.
Yes, I want to share that with everyone. So
Okay.
once again, thank you for such a wonderful session. Thank you to Kaplan Early Learning for being such a wonderful sponsor and for all the continuous support that you continue to give us. We really do appreciate it. So at this time, I am going to give away a wonderful prize from Kaplan Early Learning, but I'm just going to stop recording first.